Admiral Kextar stared at the holographic message floating above his command console, its blue light casting strange shadows across his scale features. The transmission had arrived 3 cycles ago, untraceable and anonymous, containing nothing but coordinates for a system on the outer rim, and a single line of text in perfect galactic standard. Do not touch Earth. This is your only warning. The bridge of the Dominion's fist buzzed with quiet activity as his crew prepared for the jump to hyperspace. 200 ships of the Imperial fleet hung in formation around them, enough firepower to glass a dozen worlds. More than enough for one primitive planet that had somehow managed to broadcast a threat across half the galaxy. Admiral called Navigator Voss from her station, her forearms dancing across the controls. All ships report ready for hyperspace transition. Course laid in for the Sol system. Kextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. 20 years he had served the Empire, conquering worlds and bringing civilization to the barbarian edges of known space. Never once had a pre-contact species dare to threaten them. The audacity was almost admirable. "Commence jump," he ordered, settling back into the command throne, "and patch me through to the fleet." The stars stretched into lines as hyperspace embraced them, and Kextar's voice echoed across 200 warships. "Warriors of the Empire, we go to face a species that has forgotten its place in the galaxy. They possess rare minerals we require, and they dare to threaten us in response to our righteous claim. Show them the price of defiance." Commander Thane, his human liaison officer, shifted uncomfortably beside the command throne. The Empire had conquered Earth's colony worlds decades ago, taking humans as subjects and utilizing their tactical insights. Most had proven loyal, grateful for the order the Empire provided. "Admiral," Thane said quietly, "if I may suggest caution, humans can be unpredictable when cornered." Kextar's yellow eyes fixed on the human. "Your species serves the Empire well, Commander, but these Earth-dwellers rejected our generous offer of subjugation. They chose isolation over enlightenment. Now they threaten us." His laugh was a harsh rasp. "What can one primitive world do against the might of the Imperial fleet?" The journey through hyperspace took 6 hours. When they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Sol system, Kextar expected to find orbital defenses, perhaps a small fleet of chemical propulsion vessels. What he found instead was nothing. Sensor report, he commanded 9 planets, as expected from the surveys. The 3rd planet shows massive energy signatures consistent with industrial civilization. Population approximately 8 billion. But Admiral, the sensor operator's voice carried confusion. "I'm reading no orbital installations, no defensive fleets. Nothing." "They're hiding," Kextar decided. "Begin full spectrum scans. Check asteroid fields, the outer planets, anywhere they might have positioned vessels." Hours passed as the fleet spread out in search formation. They found mining operations on asteroids, space stations orbiting the gas giants, but no military presence. It was as if Earth had simply chosen to ignore their arrival. "Perhaps they hope we'll leave if they pretend we're not here," mused Commander Voss. But Commander Thane was studying the tactical displays with growing unease. He had been born on Proxima Colony before its conquest, had fought alongside other humans in the Imperial service. He knew his species' history, their tendency toward violence and innovation when threatened. The silence felt wrong. "Admiral, I recommend we establish communication before proceeding," he said. Kextar waved dismissively. "Open a channel to the planet. Let us hear what excuse they offer." The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human woman in simple clothing, standing in what appeared to be a garden. Behind her, a blue sky stretched to the horizon, peaceful and serene. "I am Secretary General Chun of the United Earth Government," she said calmly. "You have entered our star system with hostile intent. We ask that you reconsider and depart peacefully." "I am Admiral Kextar of the Imperial Fleet," he replied, his translator rendering his words in the human tongue. "Your world possesses resources the Empire requires. Submit to our authority, and your people will be treated with the mercy befitting loyal subjects." Secretary General Chen's expression didn't change. "We received your initial demands months ago, Admiral. Our answer remains the same. Earth is not for taking. Then you have chosen the hard path, Kextar said, "We will take what we need from your ashes." "Admiral," Chin said quietly, "we sent you a warning. You ignored it. What happens next is your choice, not ours." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Kextar felt a moment of uncertainty, something in the human woman's tone that spoke of hidden knowledge. But he pushed the feeling aside. He had his orders, and the Empire's needs came first. "Fleet advance to orbital bombardment range," he commanded. "Target major population centers and industrial complexes. We'll break there quickly." As the Imperial fleet moved deeper into the system, none of them noticed the small objects detaching from asteroids throughout the belt, or the way space itself seemed to shimmer in certain areas where nothing had been detected moments before. Earth waited, silent and patient, as 200 warships closed on what they believed was defenseless prey. In the depths of space, ancient systems came online, and humanity's true nature began to reveal itself. The Imperial fleet had barely crossed the orbit of Mars when space around them erupted in fire. Admiral Kextar was thrown from his command throne as the Dominion's fist shuddered under impacts that should have been impossible. Alarms screamed across the bridge as his tactical display lit up with contacts that hadn't existed seconds before. "Report!" he roared, hauling himself upright as his crew fought to maintain control. Massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. The sensor operator's voice cracked with disbelief. Ships materializing from nowhere. They were cloaked, Admiral, but their stealth technology is beyond anything in our databases. On the main screen, Kextar watched in growing horror as sleek vessels twice the size as heaviest cruisers shimmered into existence. Their hulls were deep black, seeming to absorb light itself, and they moved with impossible grace through space. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, and where they struck Imperial ships, armor plating designed to withstand nuclear fire simply vaporized. "Impossible," he whispered. The surveys showed primitive technology, chemical rockets, nuclear fission. Commander Thane was studying his tactical display, his face pale. "Admiral, those energy readings, they're using antimatter containment systems more advanced than ours. And look at their formation patterns." He highlighted the enemy movements. Perfect coordination across hundreds of ships. They're sharing data instantaneously across light years of space. The Retribution, a heavy cruiser in the fleet's vanguard, took a direct hit from 3 of the mysterious vessels. Kextar watched in stunned silence as the ship's shields collapsed in seconds, followed by armor and then the ship itself. There was no explosion, no debris field. The cruiser simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered into component particles. "Sir," Navigation Officer Voss called out, "I'm reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. They're not just using advanced technology, they're manipulating space-time itself." As if to confirm her words, a group of Imperial destroyers suddenly found themselves caught in what appeared to be a localized gravity well. The ships stretched like taffy as tidal forces tore them apart, their crews screaming across comm channels before the signals cut to static. "All ships, scatter formation," Kextar commanded. "Emergency evasive maneuvers." But even as his fleet tried to disperse, the human vessels moved to intercept with inhuman precision. They seemed to anticipate every tactical decision before it was made, positioning themselves perfectly to maximize damage while minimizing exposure to return fire. Commander Thane grabbed Kextar's arm. "Admiral, we need to retreat. Now. This isn't a battle, it's an execution. We are the Imperial fleet." Kextar snarled, shaking off the human's grip. "We do not retreat from primitives." But even as he spoke, another section of his fleet died in silence. 12 ships caught in some kind of exotic matter beam that reduced their molecular bonds to quantum foam. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were doing it with technology that made the Empire's finest weapons look like crude clubs. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead enemy vessel," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." The face that appeared on screen was human, but not like any human Kextar had seen before. The man's eyes held depths that spoke of centuries of experience, and when he smiled, it was without warmth or mercy. "Admiral Kextar," the human said in perfect galactic standard, "I am Fleet Admiral Harrison, commander of Earth's Home Defense Force. You were warned not to come here. You dare. Kextar began, but Harrison cut him off. No, Admiral. You dared. You dared to ignore a warning given in good faith. You dared to assume that a species that chooses isolation does so from weakness rather than wisdom. And you dared to threaten 8 billion innocent lives for the sake of resources you could have requested peacefully. Around them, the battle continued to rage, but it was no longer a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships moved through the Imperial formation like wolves among sheep, their weapons surgical in their precision. They targeted engines and life support, leaving escape pods and evacuation vessels untouched while methodically dismantling every warship in the fleet. Your technology, Kextar gasped, watching another cruiser simply phase out of existence. How did you advance so far without our knowledge? Harrison's expression grew sad. You assume we advanced, Admiral. You assume we started from where you found us and somehow leaped ahead in the span of decades. But you never asked the right question. What question? Kextar found himself asking despite his rage. You never asked why a species capable of interstellar travel would choose to stay on one world. Why we would pretend to be primitive when we could have joined your empire as equals. Why we would isolate ourselves from galactic civilization. The Dominion's fist shook again as human weapons disabled its main engines. Around them, the once mighty Imperial fleet was being reduced to floating debris and escape pods. In less than an hour, 200 warships had been neutralized by an enemy they had never seen coming. We tried to warn you, Harrison continued, not because we feared you, but because we hoped you would choose wisdom over conquest. We have seen what galactic civilizations become when they encounter us. Admiral, we hoped yours might be different. You're not human, Kextar realized with dawning horror. You can't be. No species develops this fast. Harrison's smile turned infinitely sad. Oh, Admiral, we are human. That's the problem. We are exactly what humanity becomes when left alone long enough to remember what we really are. The transmission ended, leaving Kextar alone with the wreckage of his career and the growing realization that the Empire had just encountered something far beyond their understanding. In the depths of space, more human ships continue to materialize, their numbers growing with each passing moment. And this was just Earth's home defense force. In the depths of the Imperial Palace on Zectora Prime, Emperor Vashti received news of the fleet's destruction with a calm that terrified his advisors more than rage would have. The ancient ruler sat motionless on his crystalline throne, all four of his eyes focused on the holographic display, showing the wreckage floating in Earth's solar system. 200 ships, he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries. Gone in less than 2 hours. My Emperor, Grand Admiral Nexoa stepped forward, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the throne room's lights. This must be some kind of deception. No single world could possess such firepower. Show me the sensor recordings again. Vashti commanded. The holograms shifted, displaying the final moments of the Dominion's fist. They watched in silence as human vessels appeared as if materialized from nothing, their weapons tearing through Imperial shields like they were made of paper. The technology on display defied every principle of physics the Empire understood. Energy manipulation beyond our theoretical maximums, reported Chief Science Advisor Colran, her 6 arms gesturing at the data streams. Gravitational control that suggests mastery of fundamental forces. And their coordination. She paused, mandibles clicking nervously. My Emperor, they're operating with quantum entanglement communication across their entire fleet. Instantaneous coordination, regardless of distance. Emperor Vashti rose from his throne, a movement that sent ripples of unease through the assembled court. In 300 years of rule, he had never encountered a challenge he couldn't overcome through superior force or political manipulation. But this, what do we know of Earth's history? He asked. According to our records, they were discovered 2 centuries ago by a survey expedition, answered Intelligence Director Quindal. Primitive civilization, industrial age technology, nuclear weapons, but no space travel beyond their own moon. The survey team classified them as a potential subject species for future integration. And yet they knew we were coming. Vashti mused. They prepared for us. Not just prepared. They were ready to annihilate a fleet that has conquered half the galaxy. A new voice interrupted from the chamber's entrance. Because they've been watching us for far longer than we've been watching them. The court turned to see Commander Thane entering, still wearing his scorched uniform from a battle. He had been one of the few survivors. Picked up by a human rescue vessel and returned to Imperial space with a message. "Commander," Emperor Vashti acknowledged, "you carry word from Earth?" "I do, my Emperor." Thane approached the throne, his human features drawn with exhaustion and something deeper, a haunted knowledge that seemed to age him years and moments. "Fleet Admiral Harrison wishes to speak with you directly." The human presumes to demand audience with the Emperor? Grand Admiral Nexos bristled. "Not demand," Thane corrected quietly. "Request. There's a difference, Admiral. One we're going to learn the importance of very quickly." Emperor Vashti studied the human officer. In the decades since Earth's colonies had been conquered, humans had proven themselves valuable servants. Tactical, intelligent, adaptable. But Thane's demeanor had changed. The deference was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like pity. "Establish the connection," Vashti ordered. The throne room's main display activated, showing the same peaceful garden where Secretary General Chin had delivered Earth's refusal. But now Fleet Admiral Harrison stood there, his ageless features calm as he regarded the assembled might of the Imperial Court. "Emperor Vashti," Harrison said, inclining his head slightly. "Thank you for accepting my communication." "You destroyed my fleet," Vashti stated flatly. "We neutralized a threat to our world," Harrison corrected. "Your crews are alive, Emperor. We have taken no prisoners, claimed no slaves, seized no territory. We have simply defended ourselves. With technology that defies explanation." Harrison's expression grew thoughtful. "That's the question, isn't it? How did one primitive world develop such capabilities? Your intelligence services are probably scrambling for answers. Try to understand how we leaped so far ahead in such a short time." Chief Science Advisor Cole Rand stepped forward. "Our analysis suggests impossible advancement. The energy systems alone would require centuries of theoretical development. Unless," Harrison said quietly, "we didn't develop them, unless we remembered them." The throne room fell silent. Emperor Vashti felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "Explain," he commanded. Harrison gestured, and the garden behind him shimmered and changed, becoming a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. "This is Archive Complex 7, one of 12,000 such facilities on Earth. Each one contains the accumulated knowledge of human civilization spanning 50,000 years." "Impossible," breathed Grand Admiral Nexos. "Human recorded history goes back only a few millennia." "Human recorded history in this cycle," Harrison corrected. "We are not the first human civilization. Emperor, we are perhaps the 20th. And each time we fall, each time we destroy ourselves through war or folly or simple overreach, we leave archives to those who come after." The display shifted again, showing images that defied comprehension. Cities that span continents, ships that dwarf moons, technology that seemed to bend reality itself. "Every few thousand years, we rediscover the archives," Harrison continued. "We learn what we were, what we achieved, and what brought us down. We decide whether to reclaim our heritage or to let it sleep for another age." Emperor Vashti's voice was barely above a whisper. "What made you choose to remember this time?" "You did," Harrison said simply. "When your scouts first arrived in our system 2 centuries ago, we knew what was coming. We had seen it before in other cycles, other ages. Galactic civilizations always follow the same pattern. Expansion, conquest, the assumption that might makes right. And you oppose us." "We don't oppose anyone, Emperor. We simply refuse to be conquered. Again." Harrison's eyes grew distant. "In our 17th cycle, we joined a galactic empire much like yours. We became their greatest weapons, their most effective conquerors. The galaxy burned under our leadership until we finally turned on our masters and burned with it." The implications hit Emperor Vashti like a physical blow. "You're saying you've done this before, that you've been part of and destroyed civilizations like ours." 3 times, Harrison confirmed. 3 times we've chosen to remember and reclaim our power. 3 times we've been forced to use it against those who would not leave us in peace. Each time, we told ourselves it would be different. Each time, we were wrong. Commander Thane spoke into the stunned silence. That's why they tried to warn us, Emperor. They've seen how the story ends. Harrison nodded sadly. We hoped your empire might be different, that you might choose diplomacy over domination. But when you ignored our warning, when you came with conquest fleets rather than peaceful contact, he shrugged. We began to remember. And once we start remembering, Emperor, it becomes very difficult to forget again. On the display, the garden returned peaceful and serene. But now Emperor Vashti could see it for what it really was, the calm before an unimaginable storm. What do you want from us? He asked. Nothing, Harrison replied. We want to be left alone. We want to tend our gardens and raise our children and pretend that we're just a primitive species on a single world. But if you force us to remember more than we already have. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The emergency session of the Imperial High Command had been running for 18 hours straight, and Emperor Vashti could feel the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on his ancient shoulders. Around the war room's massive tactical display, his most trusted advisors debated options that all seemed to lead to catastrophe. We could mobilize the entire Imperial Navy, Grand Admiral Nexos was saying, his scarred features reflecting the holographic light. 5,000 ships from across the Empire. They cannot stand against such numbers. Can't they? Chief Science Advisor Colran interjected, her multiple arms gesturing at the data streams. We've analyzed every second of the Earth battle. Their ships appear to be using technologies we don't even have theories for. Mass energy conversion at will. Localized gravity manipulation. Quantum tunneling for instantaneous positioning. She paused, her voice dropping. And that was their home defense force. Admiral, what do you think their actual military looks like? Intelligence Director Quindow cleared his throat. My Emperor, our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures throughout human-occupied space. Not just Earth. Every world that once held human colonies is showing similar patterns. Emperor Vashti felt something cold settle in his stomach. Explain. The colony worlds we conquered decades ago, where we took human populations as subjects, they're no longer responding to Imperial communications. Our garrison fleets report that entire populations have simply vanished overnight, leaving only empty cities and inactive infrastructure. Rebellion, suggested Grand Admiral Nexos. No signs of violence, Quindow replied. No damage to Imperial installations. Our troops report that one day there were millions of human colonists, and the next day there were none, as if they simply left. Commander Thane, who had remained silent throughout the debate, finally spoke. They didn't leave. They went home. All eyes turned to the human officer. Emperor Vashti gestured for him to continue. Fleet Admiral Harrison told me something while I was aboard their ship. Thane said quietly, every human who has ever lived is recorded in their archives, not just their knowledge, their patterns, their essence, their souls, for lack of a better word. When they begin to remember, they can reach out to any human anywhere in the galaxy and bring them home. Impossible, breathed Colran. The energy requirements alone. For a civilization that treats mass and energy as interchangeable concepts, that can manipulate gravity and space-time at will. Thane shook his head. Emperor, what we saw at Earth was just a beginning. They're not just defending their world. They're gathering their people. All of them. The tactical display updated, showing a new stream of intelligence reports. Energy signatures were now being detected around dozens of systems throughout Imperial space. Not weapon signatures. Something else entirely. Construction, Quindow realized, studying the patterns. They're building something. Multiple somethings. Massive structures in deep space. Emperor Vashti stared at the display, feeling the weight of 3 centuries of rule pressing down on him. He had built the greatest empire in galactic history through careful calculation of risk and reward. But this was beyond calculation. What do they want? He asked aloud, though he feared he already knew the answer. As if summoned by his words, the chamber's communication system activated. Fleet Admiral Harrison appeared on the main screen, his ageless features as calm as ever. But there was something different about him now, a depth to his eyes that spoke of vast and terrible knowledge. "Emperor Vastai," Harrison said, "we need to talk." "Admiral," the Emperor replied, "I was just discussing our situation with my advisors." "I'm sure you were. And I'm sure they're telling you to mobilize your fleets, to call up every ship in the Empire for one massive assault on Earth." Harrison's smile was sad. "It's what we would do in your position. It's what we have done in the past." "You speak as if you've been in our position." "Haven't we? The 17th cycle, Emperor. We controlled a galactic empire that spanned 40,000 worlds. We were the dominant species, the apex predators of known space. We convinced ourselves that our cause was just that we brought order to chaos, civilization to barbarism." The display behind Harrison shifted, showing images of impossible grandeur. Ships that dwarf planets, megastructures that harness the power of entire stars, worlds reshaped into perfect geometric forms. "We were magnificent," Harrison continued, "and we were wrong. Power without wisdom, strength without compassion, always leads to the same place. We became monsters, Emperor. Beautiful, efficient, absolutely dominant monsters." "What happened?" Emperor Vashti found himself asking. "We remembered who we used to be, before the power, before the Empire, before we convinced ourselves that might made right. We remembered what it felt like to be human." Harrison's expression grew infinitely sad. "And we couldn't live with what we had become. You destroyed your own empire. We burned it all, Emperor. Every ship, every station, every monument to our glory. We scattered ourselves across space and swore never to remember, never to rise again. For 3,000 years we kept that promise. Until now. Until you forced us to break it." Harrison's voice carried a weight of regret that seemed to span millennia. "We tried to warn you. We hoped you would be different, that you would choose to leave us alone. But you came with fleets and demands, and we—" He paused. "We had no choice but defend ourselves." Emperor Vashti leaned forward. "What do you want from us now?" "The same thing we've always wanted. To be left alone. To forget what we are and pretend to be what you first thought us, a simple species on a single world. And if we refuse, if we mobilize our fleets—" Harrison's image flickered, replaced by views of deep space around Imperial territory. Massive structures were taking shape in the void, their purpose unclear, but their scale undeniable. Each one was larger than the Empire's greatest space stations, and there were dozens of them. "If you force us to remember more than we already have," Harrison said quietly, "then we will have no choice but to become what we once were. And, Emperor, you do not want to see what humanity looks like when we stop pretending to be civilized." The transmission ended, leaving the war room in absolute silence. Emperor Vashti stared at the tactical display, watching the energy signatures multiply across his empire's borders. In 300 years of rule, he had never faced a choice like this: surrender to a species he had thought primitive, or risk the complete annihilation of everything he had built. The weight of the decision would have crushed a lesser being. But Emperor Vashti had not ruled for 3 centuries by making easy choices. 3 months later, Emperor Vashti stood alone on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the funeral pyres of his empire burn across the void of space. The view outside showed the remains of Fortress Station Omega, once the Empire's most heavily defended installation, now nothing more than twisted metal and fading plasma clouds. The final battle had lasted 6 days. It had begun when Grand Admiral Nexoas, defying direct Imperial orders, launched a preemptive strike against the mysterious structures humanity was building in deep space. 5,000 ships, the largest armada ever assembled in galactic history, had jumped the coordinates of the nearest construction site. They had found something waiting for them that defied every assumption about warfare, technology, and the nature of reality itself. "Emperor," came a voice from behind him. Emperor Vashti turned to see Commander Thane entering the observation deck, no longer wearing Imperial uniform but simple civilian clothes. "Fleet Admiral Harrison is ready to speak with you." Are you still my officer, commander? Vashti, I asked quietly. Thane's expression was compassionate, but firm. I serve the Empire, Emperor, but the Empire that conscripted me from a colony world no longer exists. The Empire that will rise from these ashes, that remains to be seen. The Emperor nodded slowly and followed Thane to the ship's communication center. On the main screen, Fleet Admiral Harrison appeared, but he looked different now, older somehow, despite his ageless features. The weight of terrible decisions showed in his eyes. Emperor, Harrison said simply. Admiral. Vashti's eyes struggled to maintain his dignity in the face of absolute defeat. Your victory is complete. My fleets are destroyed, my world's in rebellion, my empire crumbling. What terms do you offer? No terms, Harrison replied. We never wanted your empire, Emperor. We wanted to be left alone. Then what now? Do you claim our territory? Rule over our species. Harrison's laugh was bitter. Haven't you been listening? We don't want to rule anyone. We've done this before, remember? We know where that path leads. The display behind Harrison shifted, showing Earth as seen from orbit. But it wasn't the Earth from the Imperial surveys. This world pulsed with energy, its surface marked by structures that seemed to bend space around them. In orbit, thousands of ships hung in perfect formation, each one a masterwork of technology that made Imperial vessels look like crude toys. We're leaving, Harrison said quietly. Emperor Vashti blinked in confusion. Leaving? Earth. This galaxy. We've remembered too much, become too much like what we used to be. Already some of our people are talking about bringing order to chaos, about using our power to create peace through strength. His expression grew haunted. We've heard those words before, Emperor. We've spoken them ourselves. You're running away. We're choosing exile over repetition. There are other galaxies, other spaces between the stars. We'll find somewhere far from any other intelligent life and try once again to forget what we are. And my empire will rebuild, or won't. That up to you and your people now. Harrison paused. We're leaving archives, Emperor, not our military technology. We're taking that with us. But medical knowledge, agricultural techniques, energy generation, space travel improvements, things that can help your species grow without becoming weapons. Emperor Vashti stared at the human admiral, struggling to understand. You defeat us utterly, and then you help us? We defeat you because you forced us to. We help you because that's what we choose to be when we're not busy being monsters. Harrison's smile was infinitely sad. Maybe your empire will be different, Emperor. Maybe you'll choose to build something better than what came before. Maybe you'll learn from our mistakes. And if we don't, if we become what you were in your 17th cycle, then hopefully someone will stop you before you destroy yourselves. The way we should have been stopped. Harrison's image began to flicker. We're already beginning the transition. Emperor, within days, Earth and all our people will be gone from this galaxy. Your species will have a second chance to choose what kind of civilization you want to build. Wait, Emperor Vashti called out. Why? Why give us that chance? After what we tried to do to you. Harrison's final words echoed across the communication channel as his image faded. Because someone has to break the cycle, Emperor. Someone has to choose mercy over vengeance, hope over fear. Maybe it will be you. Maybe it will be whoever comes after you. But someone has to try. The transmission ended, leaving Emperor Vashti alone with the wreckage of everything he had built, an impossible gift of future he didn't deserve. In the days that followed, long-range sensors confirmed the impossible. Earth's star system was simply gone. Not destroyed, not moved, gone, as if it had never existed. Where Sol had burned for billions of years, there was now only empty space and the faint echo of gravitational waves that spoke of realities folded on themselves. Humanity had kept their promise. They had chosen exile over dominion, forgetting over remembering. Emperor Vashti stood once again on his observation deck, looking out at stars that seemed different now, smaller somehow, more fragile. He held in his hands a data crystal containing the archives Harrison had promised, knowledge that could transform his civilization, wisdom earned through countless cycles of rise and fall. The choice was his now. rebuild the empire as it was, or create something new, something better. In the depths of space, where Earth had once hung like a blue jewel, quantum echoes carried the faint whisper of children's laughter, growing fainter with each passing moment as humanity searched for a place where they could finally be at peace with what they were. The Empire had been warned not to touch Earth. They had ignored the warning, and they had burned. But from those ashes, perhaps something better could rise. The choice, as always, belonged to those who remained.